I'm ready when you are.
Have you ever felt like saying something with no ill intention, but didn't because you knew people wouldn't take it well? Earlier this year, my views on politics and society drastically changed. I wrote an article about this in my personal blog. It took a lot of bravery to write, and I knew I faced criticism, but I certainly didn't expect my school student council to investigate me because of it. At the time of publishing the blog post, I held a position on my university student council and was called in to meet with members of the executive board twice concerning my article. I was told that people felt unsafe and uncomfortable around me because I expressed politically incorrect ideas and opinions, such as explaining why I didn't believe in third-wave feminism or identity politics. They came to the conclusion that what I wrote did not make sense and that I was wrong. On the other hand, there were those who objectively stated there was nothing wrong with it and agreed with what I said, praising my willingness to share what many would be afraid to express. In the end, this led to my resignation. I felt shunned and misconceived by the members, and I did not want to be in a place where I was clearly not welcomed. Ironically, this council claimed to promote tolerance, which evidently didn't include the tolerance for different opinions. People can have disagreements, but should we become hostile or fearful towards those who think that maybe blue is a better color than pink, to those who believe in God versus those who don't? I have been insulted by my own friends who mock my Christian faith directly to my face, yet I have never claimed to feel fear because everyone is entitled to their opinion, even if it may be offensive to me. Many assume that because I am a conservative, I support oppression and removing people's rights, but this couldn't be further from the truth. We all want what's best for our world. We just have different ideas in going about it, and we have the right to share them in hopes that there will be those willing to listen. Ultimately, I believe in freedom, and I believe the root of freedom begins with the freedom of speech and expression. After losing the respect of many of my peers, I discovered the story of Raif Badawi. Raif Badawi is a Saudi Arabian writer who ran a blog about politics and religion. His blog promoted liberalism, free speech, and expression in Saudi Arabia. This is an excerpt from it. As a human being, you have the right to express yourself. You have the right to journey wherever your mind wanders and to express the thoughts you come up with along the way. You have the right to believe and to atone, the same way you have the right to love and to hate. You have the right to be a liberal or to be an Islamist. His posts also explain how his country should give more rights to women and minorities, and how countries are better off without theocracy governments because it outlaws free speech. And what was Raif's consequence for expressing such views? 1,000 lashes, 10 years in jail, and 1 million Saudi riyals, all for being accused of insulting Islam. His wife and 3 children were forced to flee to Canada due to the controversy surrounding his blog, and they have not seen him since 2012. After reading Raif's story, I was appalled by how life-changing and cruel his consequences were compared to my own. However, I did notice an ironic parallel between our experiences. We were both criticized for revealing our unthinkable opinions, even though we were simply expressing what we thought was better for our society. There may be little to no comparison between free speech in Saudi Arabia and to that of North America, but the truth of the matter is, the moment any amount of free speech is taken away, it can only get worse from there. I reached out and met with Raif's wife, Ansaf Haidar. When I told her my story, she was unpleasantly shocked that a blogger in a democracy like Canada could go through any trouble over having a different opinion, just as her husband had. What Raif said in his blog may not be considered hate speech to us in North America, but for Saudi Arabia it was. This goes to show that many things we claim to be hate speech here may not actually be considered hate speech elsewhere. Let's look at what Raif says here. Arab thinkers, especially those who are blessed with a free-thinking mind, are used to reading between the lines and dancing with their words around such topics. It is the only way for them to pass their philosophy, particularly those who present an enlightening rationale are considered blasphemous and atheist. The Arab societies are programmed to consider any free-thinking idea to be a moral degradation. They consider it to be an act against religion and the departure from the righteous road. There's a noticeable parallel between this statement and the issue of free speech in North America. Many writers, commentators, and powerful figures are forced to limit what they say or find a way to carefully introduce certain topics in order to prevent offending those who will label them as racists, white supremacists, Nazis, homophobes, and more for challenging any politically correct ideas. The leftist societies tend to be programmed to consider any idea that challenges political correctness to be hateful and dangerous. Free speech is in danger everywhere. Lindsay Shepherd is a TA at Wilfrid Laurier University and was called in to meet in a very similar meeting as mine for neutrally showing a debate over gender-neutral pronouns in her class. Several conservative journalists were banned from the UK for performing a social experiment that offended a religious group and for planning interviews with right-wing figures. Dozens of conservative figures have been banned from Twitter and other platforms simply for expressing their moderately conservative views, while left-wing figures who have advocated for violence and targeted harassment still have verified accounts. A university is a place where diverse ideas should be presented and challenged. Wouldn't it go against education protocol to ban ideas that may not necessarily match the general population or of those in power? Although I have lost many friends and my position on the student council due to my change in political beliefs, I've also had many amazing opportunities come to me. Not only have I gained better relationships, but because of my passion for the cause of free speech and Raif Badawi, his wife Ensaf has asked me to become an assistant president in the Raif Badawi Foundation for Freedom. With this position, as well as my blog and other shareable sources, I will continue to advocate for free speech, despite the criticism I will face. No one should be forced to believe in something they don't, nor listen to anyone they wish not to, but silencing them is not the answer. It should be necessary to have the opportunity to discuss and challenge ideas, not censor them just to protect some people from being offended as if their life depended on it. We may not always be on the same side or agree on the same things, but we should all be uniting for free speech and encourage discussion. People who promote free speech are not bullies. It's the people who intimidate them into silence that are. If someone says something you disagree with, challenge them. Don't silence them. What gives someone the right to offend someone, you ask? And for that, I quote Jordan Peterson, and I say, in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. You're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. So this raises a question so very rarely asked. Do I have the right to speak, or is it just a privilege? If it's a right equal to the right to live or breathe, then all the debate on the question of free speech and how you label it ends right here. If it's a privilege, however, someone has to tell me who gives out the privilege and why they get to do it.